I would argue that it might be Alex Caruso being traded to the Thunder. Okay, so while I understand that the star players drive so much of what happens in this league, the NBA is at a place where right now depth matters. And putting all your team into 2 or 3 star players, I don't think is necessarily a winning formula. Okay, that's my preamble. I'll put that aside. What I think is important about those 2 trades was that the Drew Holiday trade doesn't happen until the Dame Lillard trade happens. So yes, we are going to focus on what happens with Giannis. Absolutely. Giannis's decision about whether he wants to be traded or not. Secondly, about whether or not Giannis is going to have a full control over where he gets traded. Because he's got 2 years on his contract. It's a little bit of a gray area. The Bucks, to get the maximum value, may not be able to give him exactly what he wants. But giving him exactly what he wants may make things a lot easier. So I think that's a big factor. But the key to me is the Giannis domino effect. Where he might get traded and what that might trigger, both with the teams involved in the trade and the other teams that come around it. So Giannis is going to say a lot of things. And while I could list you a bunch of teams that could make a big offer for him, if I was Giannis and I'm looking at the lay of the land right now, I want to stay in the Eastern Conference. I don't want to go to a Western Conference team because it's going to be a really hard mountain to climb.
The only problem with that, and I understand that completely, Wendy, I hear you. What Eastern team has both the assets to go out and get Giannis and then have enough on the other side of a trade to seriously contend? And I look at we know the usual suspects. Everybody's going to mention New York first, going to mention the Knicks. They might even mention the Nets, which to me is slightly insane. But if you look at the team, I'm going to go west now. If you look at the Spurs that are sitting there with the numbers 2 and 14 picks in the first round, the very first round. And if you're Milwaukee, that's got to attract you. And I'm not giving up Castle. Don't even mention his name. I'm not coming to the phone or staying on the phone if you ask me to give up the Rookie of the Year, who I think has a bit of early SGA-ism. If you want to look at a guy and project a little bit, Castle to me has that. I'm not giving him up, but there's some players on that roster I can give up and still come away with De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Rookie of the Year. Look at the 4 players you come back with on the other side of such a deal. I don't know that can anybody in the East match that?
I don't know if they can match it, but there is one team in particular that I think is going through a revamp and a gap year in the Boston Celtics where it could be interesting. Right? Jason
you give
Tatum.
Up one of the 2 stars. Have to, right?
Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum. Probably on the side of Jaylen Brown more than Jason Tatum because of his versatility and how he plays. They're also new ownership, so it's fluid, right? New ownership coming in. What kind of salaries can he actually sustain? And Porzingis getting older, Al Horford getting older, Drew Holiday getting older. You have Derek White kind of lingering there. I would rather keep Derek White. I'm not sure draft collateral what they have, Brian, but it seems like Boston's in that sweet spot to a degree, at least in my opinion, maybe.
Also, I just want to throw out one other name, Brian, before you respond. What about Miami? They need someone. I don't know if they have the pieces to do it, but Miami needs a star.
Again, the equation to me is enough to give up to satisfy Milwaukee in a trade,
because they want to contend,
and enough to come on the other side of it, and Giannis to be somewhere where you still got enough to win. That is easier in the Eastern Conference, to Wendy's point, but I don't know.
Wendy, and then there's the KD of it all.
I don't think Miami has the perfect set of circumstances. I think Boston was more interesting before the devastating Tatum injury because I don't know what you're going to possibly think you get from Jason Tatum next year. Before that, I think that was a real conversation, and maybe it still could be. I think New York is definitely a conversation for sure. But
wait, which New York?
Correct.
Just
the
Spurs?
Knicks?
Well, New York means New York.
Well,
Brooklyn would mean the Nets.
Brooklyn isn't.
I'm just saying this is.
Brooklyn doesn't have a.
Brooklyn's a good spot too. Go ahead.
I love Brooklyn. I'm a Nets fan.
Go ahead, Wendy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Brooklyn doesn't have a real. They might have a plan, but they don't have a demonstrable pathway right now that if they traded for Giannis on the other side, they would have a championship team ready to go. So again, this comes down to whether the Bucks are getting the highest value or they're working with Giannis. We don't have a clarity of that yet. It's so very important. But Wilbon is correct. The Spurs could probably put together the best package, including the number 2 pick in this draft. And if you were okay with saying, all right, I'm making a 3 or 5 year decision, yes. If you're making a 1 to 2 year decision, I mean, I was listening to Chris Finch last night, and he was laying out how he thinks 13 or 14 teams in the West next year could be, quote unquote, going for it. And he went so far as to say you could have a great year in the Western Conference next year and go 42-40. Those are his words, having just led the 6th seed to the Western Conference Finals. So I don't think you can just ignore that.
All right, Wendy, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Coming up, while Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson continue to slug it out, can either of those stars take down the Thunder in the finals? We'll answer it. And for the second straight year, Anthony Edwards' season ends in the Western Conference Finals. How much of a hit has Edwards' rep taken, falling short again?